My name is Adrian Cheok, and I am Director of the Mixed Reality Lab in the National University of Singapore, and also we have a joint lab with Keio University in Tokyo, which is called the CUTE Center, and it stands for Connected Ubiquitous Technology for Embodiments. And we're basically doing new works in the area of communication media. Became a professor in the university. Normally they would do very narrow research, on some very technical aspect or something. But at that time, I really realized there's a revolution happening, and the revolution which is happening is that for the first time ever, we have ability to communicate all over the globe, 24 hours a day. And so the internet is at first was seen more as a business tool. It's going to change the nature of business, but actually what happened is it changed the whole nature of the society. We've never had in the whole human history such an ability to communicate. So I think the inspiration really comes from the childhood, and also really thinking deeply about what is the nature of communication and society, and how it will change in the future. And also I think watching a lot of movies when I was young, so I think my generation, I think, because I'm 39 now, so nearly 40, I think we were kind of inspired by the Star Wars, this kind of movies which came out, the original Star Wars. And, so when I saw the Princess Leia hologram, I thought, okay, that's what I want to do that when I grow up. So I think all these things become part of the inspiration. It's very difficult to pick exactly one point for the inspiration, but I think it's more importantly, I think to do as many things as possible when you're young, as a child and teenager, have as many different experiences in different fields, and this will help in the future to make the inspirations. And then now, I think now kind of reaching the middle life, or maybe near the end of life, I'm not sure, but depending. But now I think it's more important for me to help inspire the next generation. So I have the PhD students in my lab. So instead of directly telling them my own ideas now, what I want to do is work together with them and get them to think of, the process of making new ideas is critical, and that's more sustainable. And I think, so one thing I tell to my students, say, don't do the same as me, shock me, so because if you shock me, then it's got something new, right? And I think that's very important. It's so, maybe the boyfriend and girlfriend, before this era of mobile phone and email and Twitter, now everything is so fast, so people don't have time to think about writing a very deep message. Many people in society would go to learn how to do poetry. Even in the Asian culture, there's so many different kinds of poetry, that you can see in the history. I think a lot of the young people have lost that. Is sometimes we have a tendency to lose some good things. So I think what we can do is we can look at culture and computing together, and use the new media to reintroduce the traditional media, but in a new way that is relevant to the society. So young people now, they really like to Twitter and send messages from their phone, chat to each other. And I thought, can we do that? Can we take that, really like to express themselves? Andy Warhol said that in the future everyone will have their 15 minutes of fame, and I think this really happened already, right? So people feel that their identity is related to their public identity, so your blog and your Twitter and your Facebook is somehow a very important part of the modern identity. So with the Como Center, you've got the screen on the outside of the building, and then inside in the lobby it's kind of running on the pillars, on the ceiling, and at the cafe there's a big screen. So people can send a message, and straight away so many people can see it, hundreds of people. And because that building is in downtown Seoul, people can feel a form of public expression. And somehow this is a public need now, that we before had just designed for a single screen in a public area. But seeing it now, running on the walls and running on the outside of the building, this gives a different feature for the work. So somehow there's more meaning, that when people can send their message, see their poem in huge letters running across the wall, and they have a satisfaction, and many people can see it. So I think that's basically the next stage of the work. And I think in general, what I want to look at now is not just the logical communication, but I think what's so important for human life is the not just logical, but the illogical, and also not just the conscious, but the subconscious. And we need to look at the subconscious communication and the kind of illogical communication or emotional communication to make our human communication much more natural, much more deeper through the internet. And that way we can go to the next generation of digital communication, which is experience. Yeah. We have the 4 different screens, and I think this gives a very unique opportunity for the artists. So, as I mentioned before, we only conceptualized of the poetry mix-up as a kind of, traditional, rectangular screen, and we didn't really think about that this could be a new kind of public display, which is going all over the physical space. I think that's what I felt, that the beauty of the screens at the Como is that they're really intertwined with the public space. It's not just a screen on the wall, but it's running on the outside, it's running on the pillar, it's running on the ceiling even. And this really gives a feeling that it is enmeshed in the daily life of the people. And you see many people walking on the outside on the road, and people having their lunch at the cafe, people walking to and from their office, and this is part of their experience. And so the feeling that, so in our particular work with the poetry mix-up, the feeling that people can send the message and then see the poetry, running across the building, I think that gives a different aspect to the work that we didn't really experience before. So because before we were thinking that the poetry would be very calm, so you have a kind of calm display, and people can see the poetry and see some calm animation, some birds and this kind of thing. But we had to recreate new displays for the other screens, the longer screens and the kind of ticker tape screens. And so we had to rethink the design. And suddenly we thought, yes, poetry doesn't have to necessarily be calm. It can be like a combination of the CNN, CNN, you've got this news going across the bottom. But imagine that is poetry, and that's what I was thinking. Calm and slow, it can be fast, and maybe that is even more in tune with the fast pace of the information age. People want to see the poetry run across the wall, run across the ceiling. I think we gave good opportunity, and also we had to think carefully about the design. How do you design for thin screens? Obviously you can't do the kind of graphics and animation that you do on this kind of normal, HD display or etc. So we redesigned the graphics in such a way that it can be meaningful in a very long area. And what we did is kind of like a kind of bubbles running along the screens in a very long way. And so that it kind of gives a feeling like in childhood when you blow the bubbles and they stream out. And I think this is kind of like a streaming out onto the display. So I think this is a very good opportunity for any artist to rethink their work, kind of almost reboot their work, but in a positive way. It can give new inspiration for the artist. Yeah. So thank you very much for the great opportunity and for showing the work in Como. Thank you.